Response. Joining me again is interpreter Margie Prop, and thank you so much, Margie, for lending your services to our effort. And thank you to the media for covering the briefing, and to all the residents who are tuning in to learn more about how to protect themselves, their loved ones, and our community. We want to remind everyone to please visit our website at covid19.lincoln.ne.gov, where you can continue to access additional updates and resources valuable for navigating the uncharted waters of this pandemic. That website includes a data dashboard with additional information about our local cases and is updated once a day at about the time of this briefing. On the website, you will also find our COVID-19 risk dial. This is a visual color-coded depiction of local conditions we're experiencing here in Lincoln and Lancaster County, and right now the risk remains high for spread of COVID-19. And even though some restrictions are easing on June 1st, we want to all remember that we are at risk for contracting this virus anytime we're out in public. The dial offers guidance for individuals to make smart choices, as well as for business about the actions for their operations that can help protect each other's health and the health of our community. It's really important that all of us commit to good hand washing hygiene, to wearing face coverings or masks around others out in public, and to stay at least 6 feet distance from others outside our household. And of course, to stay home if you are sick. These are proven public health strategies necessary both for our economic recovery, to move forward, and to protect the lives of folks in our community. Moving on to a situation update. Yesterday, our nation reached a grim milestone, 100,000 lives lost to COVID-19. That tragic number includes 163 from Nebraska and 9 from here in our community. We must not let this sad occasion go unnoticed. These individuals who passed away were valued members of our communities and our families. Family members, coworkers, neighbors continue to mourn their loss. We can best honor their lives by doing all we can to keep each other safe and to keep this virus from spreading further. It's up to each and every one of us to make good choices based on science to prevent the further spread of COVID-19 and to prevent more lives from being lost. Today in Lincoln, we have had an additional 15 individuals test positive for COVID-19. The total number of lab-confirmed cases in Lincoln now stands at 1,135. Our total recoveries identified to date remains at 158 individuals. We define recovery as an individual who is diagnosed with a lab-confirmed case, a positive result for COVID-19, who has not experienced any symptoms for 28 days. And Lincoln has had few cases reported before the end of April, so we anticipate additional recoveries to be reported in the coming weeks as the 28-day marker is reached by more of those individuals who contracted the virus earlier. Here to share additional important public health messages and more on the latest case investigations is Health Director Pat Lopez.
Thank you, Mayor. We're going to start today with an update on our positivity rate. A total of 14,461 tests for COVID-19 have been completed in Lancaster County by hospitals, private labs, Nebraska Public Health Lab, and through Tests Nebraska. As the mayor said, the total number of positive COVID-19 cases in the county is now 1,135. This results in today's overall positivity rate of 7.8%, which is down slightly from 7.9% yesterday. Their overall positivity rate for the state remains at 13.9%, and the national rate remains at 14.3%. The number of COVID-19 patients in our hospitals remain at 35 today. 23 are Lancaster County residents, and 12 are from outside the county. The number of patients on ventilators is up from 11 yesterday to 12 today. 8 of those individuals are from Lancaster County and 4 from outside the county. Yesterday, Bryan Health and CHI St. Elizabeth completed nearly 226 combined tests at the hospitals and through the drive-through testing sites. And as of yesterday, Test Nebraska had completed over 4,000 tests of Lancaster County residents. That's about 28% of the total tests completed in the county. While the testing done through the hospitals and the drive-through testing sites have prioritized people with symptoms, healthcare workers, and first responders, Test Nebraska has focused on another priority group, individuals aged 65 and older who may or may not have symptoms. Testing more asymptomatic people in this priority age range is very helpful in preventing further spread. The Test Nebraska site at the Lancaster County Event Center will be available through May 31st. And Test Nebraska is expected to return to Lincoln again later in June. Reminder, testing is also readily available in Lincoln at the convenient drive-through testing sites. The process starts with contacting your primary care physician or through an online risk assessment at chihealth.com or bryanhealth.com or Test Nebraska. Through contact tracing, we have identified smaller clusters of cases and then work with those sites to prevent further spread. Most often, we help by contacting affected employees and families, providing education and resources, reviewing their infectious disease prevention plans and mitigation strategies, and helping to facilitate additional testing when necessary. These investigations have now identified additional connections to the outbreak in Saline County and smaller clusters here in Lincoln. The number of Lancaster County residents who are positive cases related to the Smithfield plant in Crete have increased from 313 to 391. 185 are employees at the plant, and 134 are family members or other direct contacts. Both of our Lancaster County plants that we have been reporting on also have small increases in positive cases. The number of cases at Smithfield here in Lincoln is up from 25 to 27, 19 employees and 8 direct contacts. The number of cases at Smart Chicken in Waverly is also up from 25 to 27. 17 of those are employees. Another cluster location that has been identified at Universal Cold Storage. This location has connections to the outbreak in Crete, and we now see 31 separate cases there, 24 employees and 7 direct contacts. As the pandemic has progressed, we have learned more about how the virus is being spread. One of the biggest concerns is now asymptomatic carriers. People who are COVID-19 positive but don't know it because they have no symptoms. Anyone you encounter could be asymptomatic and have spread the virus. That is why we all must continue to limit interactions with people outside of our own household, stay 6 feet apart from others, and to wear a face covering when we are around others. When having an interaction with someone else, both individuals should be wearing masks for the best protection. In short, when I wear a mask, I protect you. When you wear a mask, you protect me. Be a hero and wear a mask. If you need more information about masks or face coverings, you can visit the city's COVID-19 webpage, covid19.lincoln.ne.gov. When you click the How to Help tab at the top of the page, you will find face covering information in multiple languages and links to learn how to properly put on and take off your face covering. The site also has simple instructions for how you can make your own face covering. Remember, wearing your face covering is an important prevention measure, but it should be done along with other prevention measures. These include not touching your face, especially your eyes, staying at least 6 feet from others, frequently washing your hands, and staying home as much as possible. The degree to which we all adhere to these personal prevention measures will determine how quickly we move forward together and avoid taking steps back.
Thank you, Director Lopez. Yesterday, we announced the establishment of an economic recovery task force to examine conditions in Lincoln in the wake of COVID-19 and make recommendations to assist our business community and our local workforce with strategies to help our city emerge from the pandemic with an eye on maintaining our strong quality of life and emerging even stronger on the other side. It's worth emphasizing that masks play a key role not only in protecting public health, but also in advancing our economic recovery. In fact, just yesterday, Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell urged Americans to wear a face mask, explaining that it's a critical element in restoring normal life in the U.S. during the coronavirus outbreak. Senator McConnell said, quote, "To get through this next phase, as we ease back into normal, even if you're in a low-risk category, do what we're asking you to do for the good of others." Unquote. And I would add to his comments that we all should please wear a mask for the good of our local economy. When you wear a mask, you signal to other people that you are taking precautions to protect them and that they can feel more confident being in your presence. The degree to which all of us feel more confident being in each other's presence is going to be a key driver of how soon we move beyond the current empty table economy. Some additional solutions to address the issue of the empty table economy form the focus of today's briefing. My administration has been examining other ways to support business operations in our city while adhering to the recommended public health guidance, which emphasizes social distancing, enhanced hygiene practices, and of course the use of face masks out in public. We have spent time and energy on the hospitality industry in particular, recognizing that it has been particularly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. And during the pandemic, the hospitality industry has been directed to adjust their operations as we work to stem the spread of this disease. Restaurants have been limited to 50% occupancy and separation of tables by 6 feet. Our team here at City Hall has been examining the assumptions and regulations that were in place prior to the pandemic to evaluate whether or not there are temporary changes that can be made to provide businesses a way to serve more customers within the scope of our directed health measures. In short, we have worked to develop out-of-the-box solutions that allow restaurants to achieve a greater capacity of customers without increasing the density of those customers. The result of which is that today, I am taking emergency action to temporarily relax certain regulatory and permitting requirements to allow restaurants to expand their seating capacity into adjacent outdoor, publicly or privately owned spaces. Through an executive order, I am creating a temporary outdoor dining permit application and approval process. No fee will be required for either the application or the permit, and our outdoor dining review team will review and approve permits and can revoke them if issues arise that impact the public safety or access. Our outdoor dining review team will have the authority to waive or amend code requirements relating to outdoor dining, including tent permit duration, special event permit duration limits, sidewalk cafe zoning restrictions, minimum parking standards, parking lot circulation standards, setback, permanent fencing and sidewalk cafe requirements, as well as adjusting rules related to distance from public restrooms and required review by city design committees. Here to discuss how this may help some restaurants provide service to more patrons is our Urban Development Director, Dan Marvin. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that the mayor's done a great job of outlining the different entities that we're talking about, the restaurants. But really, I think there are 3 areas where we think we can provide more flexibility to help maintain social distancing and increase the capacity of restaurants. One example would be a restaurant that has real estate that is not parking around it, but just green space around its perimeter. Could they extend fencing out into those areas to expand their dining options? And there are examples like Billy's or 9th Street Char Grill that would be examples of how a restaurant would be able to expand out in those areas. The others would be restaurants that are surrounded with a parking facility and the ability to expand into those areas by either putting a tent up or just putting out into the parking lot some additional seating capacity. And Laszlo's at 56th and Old Cheney Road is an example of a restaurant that would be able to expand out under these new rules. And then in the downtown or in other areas where you abut a sidewalk, we have the Outdoor Dining Review Committee, and they will be able to help identify how you'd be able to expand out into those areas as well, so that you can increase the number of table services that you can have. We think this is a great long-term amenity for the downtown to have more outdoor dining options, but we also think in the immediate term, it's a way for restaurants to be able to expand capacity and rehire the employees that have been left as they've been shut down. The goal of this is to create opportunities for restaurants to ramp up services, but to do it under conditions of the current directed health measures. And as more restaurant staff come back to work, we think this is a positive aspect for the city of Lincoln. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. With this temporary adjustment in regulations, restaurants will be able to utilize their own adjacent outdoor space to serve customers food. Yet even with these changes, current regulations do not allow for alcohol to be served in these spaces, which is why my administration has been working on a parallel track to make adjustments at the state and local level to increase the amount of time that a special designated license to sell and serve alcohol can be maintained by a business, and working to speed up the process for approval. A proposal to streamline that approval process at the local level is now going before the City Council and is on the agenda for Monday, June 1st. We are still in discussions with the state about whether we can achieve the necessary approvals to make this happen, but we are hopeful that these adjustments will be implemented in the coming weeks to assist our local restaurants and bars. Additional adjustments that we are considering could include closing some city streets in areas where there is low traffic volume, for example, in the Haymarket District. Our Urban Development Department will be working with the Downtown Lincoln Association and the Haymarket Development Corporation to execute a survey of businesses in the area to determine if that potential solution would provide some additional support and assistance to local restaurants and bars. I'm really grateful to the team of people here at City Hall, folks at Urban Development, Planning, Building and Safety, and the law departments. They've all been working really diligently and creatively to fashion these adaptations to the way we do business in order to support our community's businesses. And how grateful we all can be to be living in the Northern Hemisphere right now, to be heading into the summer months with the opportunity to fashion outdoor, out-of-the-box solutions like these. Next, I would like to share another step we're taking to promote equity and inclusion in the spirit of our One Lincoln initiative. In our city, we value every resident and the diversity of identities, backgrounds, and perspectives that they contribute to our community. Now, more than ever, we recognize that all of us are interconnected in good times and in bad. Unfortunately, across the country and here in Lincoln, there are some who would seek to divide us through discrimination and hate. This year, we have seen various acts of bigotry committed in our community. In January, anti-Semitic graffiti was targeted at the South Street Temple. And just this week, swastikas were spray painted onto the trees in our beloved Wilderness Park. We also have been informed by our partners at the Asian Community and Cultural Center that some Asian American residents in Lincoln have experienced acts of bias due to false assumptions about the spread of COVID-19 in their communities. I join the rest of our community in condemning these acts and all acts of bigotry. To respond to these troubling incidents and as an expression of our community's shared values, my administration is proposing an ordinance to the City Council on Monday that would strengthen our ability as a city to respond to acts of hate in our community. This ordinance would create a new offense under the city code called hate intimidation that could be charged to an individual who commits a violation of a city ordinance with the intent to intimidate a person due to that person's actual or perceived status, including race, color, religion, physical or mental disability, national origin, age, ancestry, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. This ordinance would allow our city prosecutor to charge perpetrators of hate crimes in Lincoln. It would also apply to additional types of crimes beyond those included in state statute, crimes such as destruction of property and disturbing the peace, giving the city a greater ability to respond to acts of hate in our community. By adding this additional tool, we hope to demonstrate that hate has no home in Lincoln and that every resident belongs here. And we hope it is rarely used. We want to start our good news with a big thank you to Lincoln residents for their big hearts and their generosity. We see that every day, but especially the one day a year that we know as Give to Lincoln Day. When we donate to our nonprofits on this day, our dollars go further. This year's matching fund is $500,000, the largest since this day of giving began back in 2012. The Lincoln Community Foundation is the driving force behind this effort, and the foundation president, Barbara Bartle, is joining us now by Zoom with an update on how today's efforts are going. And over to you, Barb.
Thank you, Mayor. It's great to be here with you today. And, I think sometimes as I've been listening to you after your news conference, we've asked ourselves, what could I do to help? And today is the day that we can all do something to help. And Lincoln is stepping up. It is so wonderful. We just crossed the number of donations that we had last year. 21,000 donations have already come in today. And that is just amazing. And we are so grateful. $4.4 million so far have been contributed, and we still have 8 hours to go. So what a remarkable community that wants to help our neighbors. So there's still time. Go to givetolincoln.com. And you can make your donation. We have over 448 nonprofits that you can select from today. This year, it's more important than ever. Our nonprofits, so many of them have been on the front line serving those in our community that are the most vulnerable. And not only have they been providing this service, but so many of our nonprofits their operations have been impacted, and they're very strained because fundraisers are often held in the spring. And of course, those fundraisers had to be canceled this year. So now more than ever, if you are able to make a gift today, it's a great day to give, because we have a $500,000 match that came together from Westgate Bank, who's our lead sponsor, other sponsors, including the Lincoln Community Foundation, and every gift, a proportion of that match will go towards your gift. So it's a day that whatever amount you give, there will be a boost from this match fund that we have. Again, givetolincoln.com is a great place. Another fun thing that's happening across the city is that families and neighbors are chalking their walks and promoting Give to Lincoln Day. So you can go to hashtag Give to Lincoln and see some of these fun chalk drawings on the sidewalks. If you're not able to go online, of course, we hope that's the best way today because of the pandemic. Go online at givetolincoln.com, but you have about an hour if you'd like to drop your check off at one of the Westgate Bank drive-through branches. So anywhere in Lincoln, just be sure your check is made out to Lincoln Community Foundation and that you name the organizations that you want to support. So again, it's a great day, Mayor, in our city. We are so grateful. The COVID-19, the Lincoln COVID-19 Response Fund is one of the opportunities on the platform this year too. So again, we're very grateful. Thank you, everyone in Lincoln, for coming forward and making this, the number of donations, a record-breaking day for our city.
Thank you so much, Barbara, and to the team at the Lincoln Community Foundation and to Westgate Bank for persevering through the pandemic to rapidly get resources in the hands of so many who are on the front lines serving our most vulnerable here in Lincoln. And thank you to all of our residents who have dug deep and found ways to donate even in these challenging times. Since Give to Lincoln Day began in 2012, it has raised more than $26 million. And And we know that many people are in need this year. And we also know that so many of our residents are experiencing financial difficulty. So again, if you are able to give, if you're fortunate enough to be able to give, you can drop off a donation, a check written out to Lincoln Community Foundation at any Westgate bank for the next hour, or you could donate from the comfort of your home at givetolincoln.com until 11:59 p.m. tonight. Thanks again. Finally, we want to remind everyone that the Lincoln Strong online concert series continues every Thursday night through Facebook. Tonight's lineup is Past Casual at 6 p.m. and A Ferocious Jungle Cat at 7. These concerts are a fundraiser for local musicians, bars, and restaurants. And through donations to Lincoln Strong and tips to the artists, the effort has raised about $4,000, according to organizer and musician Jack Rodenberg. As we said yesterday when we announced the Economic Recovery Task Force, COVID-19 has had a major impact on sectors vital not only to our economy, but to our quality of life, including the arts and entertainment industry. The Lincoln Strong Thursday night concerts are an opportunity to enjoy more of our great local musicians and to support our local live music scene, which has been hard hit by the pandemic. So we encourage you to do that, again, tonight at 6 and 7 o'clock, Facebook at the Lincoln Strong page. And with that, we'd be happy to open it up to questions from the media. And we have Director Lopez here, Dan Marvin, we have our city attorney, we have the director of the Lincoln Transportation and Utilities Department. We've got a lot of folks physically spaced apart in this room willing to answer your questions.
Mayor Riley Johnson from the Journal Star. My first question about the sort of SDL ordinance. Could you maybe explain what it's seeking to change in terms of this new effort to try and allow restaurants and bars or restaurants in particular to serve alcohol to their customers outside? Is that the idea, and how does it do that?
I'll have Director Dan Marvin speak in just a second, but of course, alcohol is regulated very carefully, and folks who have liquor permits have usually a typical space that is permitted. So when you go beyond that permitted space, you have to apply for a special permit, particularly when that is outdoors, and there are limits to those. So we're trying, of course, to find ways to lift constraints to support our local bars and restaurants during this time, and the SDL process is one way that we're kind of reimagining how it could operate for the time being during this pandemic. And Dan Marvin can answer in more detail.
Well, Riley, what we're looking at trying to do is provide a longer SDL period. Currently, they're for 6 days, and the maximum number, I believe, is 5. So you can imagine that a restaurant could exhaust in a month all their SDL opportunities. So what we would like to do is extend the period of time, and then this would allow a person in these areas that we would allow people to go out and have food. What I say is they can go have a burger, and instead of having a burger and a Coke, they could have a burger and a beer in a larger area, and this would extend the licensed area temporarily over that area where they're serving food. So whether it's the parking lot or in their green space that they have around their building, or out in the street or in the sidewalk, we would be able to extend things out in that area. We'd also like to speed up the process. Currently, it's a 10-day period with the state, and it's a 10-day period with the city. So we can imagine there'd be some frustration involved if you had to wait nearly a month to be able to start up this process. And there's a cost issue too. The current cost is, I believe, like $40 a day. So we would like, if it was going to be for 30 days, that the cost would not go up by the number of days that we'd be extending it. And so we'll see where we go on that, but I'm hopeful. State's been very good to work with, and we'd anticipate that we could get something resolved there.
A follow-up question perhaps for Director Elliott or the mayor. With the review team that would examine certain requests, is that team essentially looking at whether the sidewalks have the capacity, say downtown, to hold certain amount of tables in addition to allowing regular traffic to flow? And I guess who would be assessing those requests?
I'll have Director Marvin come back up because I think he works with the Outdoor Review Committee.
There's a team of people that are on the Outdoor Dining Committee, and they would review the applications. And obviously, we're going to try to be as accommodative as possible, but you do need to have pedestrian flow. So there's a question of how constrained that can be, but I think we can be creative in how we address that. The alcohol sales on a narrow sidewalk, some people might want to argue to extend it across the sidewalk. I think that would be a challenge because then we'd have waiters or wait staff or clientele carrying alcohol across the public access. So we want to keep it all contiguous within the restaurant that's applying for the application. But I think there's a number of areas where we can do this. And the mayor mentioned street closures. There may be places where it would be appropriate to move out into the street, area where there isn't a lot of traffic. We don't want to infringe on other businesses to be able to conduct their own business. So there's going to be some voices that need to be heard on all of that. But that would be another way to keep things contiguous with the restaurant and extend things out even further.
Are there other questions from the media today?
I have a follow-up for Director Lopez. This is Bill with 1011.
Thanks, Bill. She'll be right here.
Hi, Bill.
Yeah, hi, Pat. I know you said 391 tied to Smithfield at Crete, but the math doesn't add up. Is it 319 possibly?
Oh, I think, yes. I was just looking at that.
Just double checking. And then the universal cold storage, that is also tied to Smithfield?
Yes, many of the individuals that work there are connected to the Smithfield plant in Crete. Their family members are direct contacts. And that's part of when we do our contact tracing, that we become aware of and look at the clusters, and you've seen some of our mapping, how we branch out and start realizing who's connected to who and where they're working and where other cases work, like looking at an index case, then looking at another direct contact, and then there's probably possibly family members and other direct household members.
Elaborate on how this represents, how quickly a virus like this can spread in close quarters?
Well, I think the issue is, and we've been very fortunate with the individuals that we work with that have really isolated and self-quarantined, but you have to remember, if you're already living with someone and they're positive, you've already been exposed, so therefore the self-quarantine. So what we're seeing is the progression of the time period for the infection to come forward. And of course, when we live in close quarters, we're talking about physical distancing. We know that's one of the things we can do so much. But if we're all living in our household, if we think about our everyday lives, we're in close contact with those individuals, and we're probably not wearing face coverings with our own family members. And that, so it can spread quickly.
Director Lopez, a follow-up question on that, and then a separate question. First, so primarily the outbreak at Universal Cold Storage is members who are either roommates or close contacts of Lancaster County residents who also work at the Smithfield plant?
Well, they're some way connected to that.
Is it all connected? I mean, does Universal Cold Storage pick up processed food from the Smithfield plant, or is this just primarily through the employees transmitting at home?
Yeah, it's right. It's through the employees' transmission and the relationship with each other. I'm not sure that Universal Cold Storage, I wouldn't be surprised that they have some relationship, but I can't speak to that. I just know that our focus has been on the individuals there and their relationships with either other individuals who maybe are at Smart Chicken or at the other Smithfield plant here, but then related to the central site at the Smithfield plant in Crete.
Another unrelated question. When tests come back, test results come back to the health department, are they classified by the week that the test result or that the test was taken, or are they classified on the day or the week that they came back? Essentially, when you report positive cases, I know some people who have reached out to us to kind of find out a little bit more about why numbers may change from prior weeks. And then, you've spoken about lab delays in testing and backlogs that affect case reporting. But could you speak to the sort of methodology the health department uses?
When we receive positive test, it'll be based on the day that the test was done. So we receive that back related to that day. But let's just say we have so many different labs reporting to us. And usually, like with Test Nebraska right now, we'll get those lab results back in 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours, when we can look at those. The state's brought up a new web domain for us to look at for those. But all our tests go into what's called the Data Mart, and I think you've heard about that. But it's really based on the day the test was done, but we report them out positive on the day we receive them. So that's the case numbers that you hear. And every lab reports differently. So you can imagine that it's a constant measure that we're constantly monitoring. Right now, we respond and do initiate our contact tracing always within 24 hours, usually sooner than that. As soon as we receive lab results, we disseminate them to the contact tracers to begin tracing. But we're really dependent on those labs and the process at the state that gets them into the Data Mart so that we can download them and get the tests and start working and letting individuals, providing them education and support.
Any further questions?
Mayor Riley from the Journal-Star again. With the hate intimidation ordinance, could you address the shortfalls in either state statute or local ordinance that you're seeking to address, and are prosecutions falling short or of the aim in the current way that the law is written here?
Our city attorney, Jeff Kirkpatrick, to come up and address your question in more detail, but we're looking to create a tool for us at the local level that we don't currently have today.
Yes, Riley, it's not a matter of falling short, but if we've got a graffiti case, for example, that comes in, reports written, and comes to the city attorney's office, we currently don't have the option to add that hate element, which is a separate offense, even though maybe a swastika's at a park or a temple or a church. Obviously, we'd like to be able to add that, but since our city prosecutors only have the ability to enforce city ordinances and not state statutes, that wasn't an option currently, and that's what we're hoping to change. And the other factor that I think the mayor addressed as well is it's not just a matter of giving our prosecutors and our police department another tool. It's also a matter of sending a message to the community that this type of behavior goes against our culture, goes against our values. And just having it on the books alone, I think, sends a strong message about what the community stands for.
And Jeff, what's the penalty? Is it the city misdemeanor, 6 months, $500 fine?
Exactly. It's 6 months, a $500 fine, or a combination thereof. The difference that we've got in our code that's going before the city council says that they're separate offenses. So, for example, if it's vandalism and a hate crime, those are two separate offenses. So, two separate abilities for the judge to sentence somebody to the jail sentence. But we also say that the jail sentences are to be served consecutively unless the judge articulates a reason why not. So that's somewhat different than any other city ordinances we have.
Mayor Riley at the Journal Star again. What feedback from restaurant owners had you or your administration heard in the sort of days since they've been able to expand their operations? And is this something that folks were already trying to kind of pilot on their own, or had some reached out to the city for guidance on whether they could do this?
You know, I didn't get requests from any particular restaurant. In fact, some of the outreach I've received from restaurants was just affirming that they were taking things slowly, that they were cautious, both for the safety of their employees and the public, and that they wanted to work closely with the health department to figure out ways to kind of resume operations. But as part of the work that we do in looking at innovative strategies across the country, in talking to other mayors, this has been a topic of how can we try new ideas, how can we change the rules to allow for rebuilding and recovering from this incredibly traumatic experience that so many of us have felt firsthand. And knowing that the hospitality industry has been impacted in the way it has, while they were not shut down, they were allowed to continue with dine-out options for service. We still know that resuming anything close to what the past looked like is still, on the horizon. So given that we want to support them and support their, relaunch, we thought, how can you do that when you're so limited in terms of your capacity? And we thought, well, let's think outside the lines, the normal boundaries of their service. And we're seeing this also being done across the country, and we're really excited to try and make it possible here in Lincoln. And I don't know if Director Marvin wants to come up and speak. Okay, no, no further comment. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you so much for tuning in to learn more about local conditions and what you can do to protect yourself and your loved ones in our community. We'll be back again tomorrow at 3:30, and don't forget, it's Give to Lincoln Day.